What's up, gamer? My name's Zuluko, and today I'm going to show you how to make your builds deal more damage in Diablo 4. There are all sorts of bonuses all over the game that give your character more damage in different ways. The thing is, they're not all created equal. There are two main types of damage bonuses. One type is called Additive, and the other one's called Multiplicative. To help you tell which one's which, you can go into the gameplay options and enable the setting called Advanced Tooltip Information. With that option active, when you mouse over an item, a Paragon node, a class passive, or anything else, you'll be able to see several extra pieces of information, but the one we're concerned with now is the set of brackets with either a plus sign or an X. Anything you see with an X in the brackets is a multiplicative modifier, while anything with a plus sign is an additive modifier. Also, if you see a modifier without any brackets at all, then it's usually pretty safe to assume that you're looking at an additive modifier. Next, you need to know how the two types of modifiers work. Additive damage modifiers, as you may have guessed from the name, simply add to your damage. So if you're starting a character that has no gear or modifiers of any kind, that character will start with a base damage of 100%. If you then equip a piece of gear that has a modifier that says plus 100% increased damage, that 100% damage increase will get added to your character's base damage and you'll be doing 200% damage, or double the damage that you started with. That's great and all, but let's say you find a second piece of gear with plus 100% increased damage. That 100% damage increase will get added to the 200% damage that your character currently deals for a total of 300% damage. That's still pretty good, but 300 is only 50% larger than 200, so while the first modifier effectively doubled the amount of damage we were dealing, the second modifier effectively only gave us 50% more damage. If we were to get more gear with the same plus 100% increased damage modifier, each one would be less and less effective at increasing the total amount of damage our character actually does. Basically, additive modifiers have diminishing returns. The more you have, the less effective it becomes to add more. They're still good to have, but endgame builds can easily get into multiple thousands of additive damage bonuses, so even a modifier that looks impressive like 200% increased damage may not actually be that useful for characters that have progressed that far. Multiplicative damage modifiers also do exactly what their name suggests. They multiply your damage by the amount specified. So again, if we start a character that has no modifiers of any kind at all and a base damage of 100%, then we add a multiplicative 100% increased damage modifier, its total damage will go from 100 to 200%. Just like before, it doubled. Isn't that great? The real fun begins when we add another multiplicative 100% increased damage modifier. This time, it takes our character's damage from 200% to 400%. The second modifier still doubles our total damage, and any similar modifiers we get would continue to double our damage. Basically, multiplicative modifiers don't have any diminishing returns, and they're always just as good as they say, no matter how many other multiplicative modifiers your character has. You pretty much always want as many multiplicative damage modifiers as you can get. Those are the two main types of damage modifiers in the game, but there are a couple of other mechanics we need to talk about to help you max out your damage. The first is attributes. Each class has a specific main attribute that grants a damage bonus based on the amount of that attribute your character has. This bonus basically functions like an extra multiplicative modifier, so it's never a bad thing to have more of your class's main attribute. The other mechanics we need to talk about are vulnerable, critical hits, and overpower. All three of these things have their own interactions and rules for activating, which are a little beyond the scope of this video, but there's a few things they share in common which we need to mention. First, when they activate, each of these mechanics gives a pretty large multiplicative bonus to the damage of your hits. Vulnerable gives 20% multiplicative damage, critical hits give 50% multiplicative damage, and overpower gives a variable amount between 0% and 50% multiplicative damage. Each of these mechanics also has associated modifiers on gear and in other places that give increased damage when you trigger each one. So like 50% increased critical damage or something. The majority of the time, those modifiers are additive modifiers and they're pulled in with the rest of your character's additive modifiers whenever you trigger the associated mechanic. So even if your build relies heavily on one or more of those mechanics, it may not always be that effective to take the increased damage modifiers that are related to whichever ones you're using. Usually the multiplicative bonus granted by triggering each mechanic is the most effective part of using it. With all that information in mind, here's what you should prioritize to get the most damage out of your characters. First, you should look for as many multiplicative damage modifiers as possible. Then look for ways your character can trigger critical hits, vulnerable, or overpower. Then look for ways to stack more of your class's main stat. Finally, if nothing else is available, take whatever additive damage modifiers you can. Those are the basics of increasing your character's damage in Diablo 4. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more like it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. Lastly, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.